All right, welcome back, economists. We are here to think about our second type of elasticity of demand. In our previous two videos on the topic of elasticity, we thought about price elasticity of demand. And if we go back to that first video, I talked you through the analogy of sort of what that word elasticity means, right? And elasticity is sort of responsiveness to a change. And the change that I described there using a rubber band was sort of pulling on that rubber band with a force. And some things are really responsive, right? If you just have sort of a small rubber band that's used to tie papers together or something like that, you don't need to put much force on that to get it to move. But if you have a big, thick exercise band, you need a lot of force to get that rubber band to stretch. So we related that to PED, where the force acting on markets is a price change. That's going to be a little bit different than income elasticity of demand because the force that is going to impact these markets is a change in income. So before we go any further, it's probably important to think about the difference between an individual change in income, right, and a change in national income. One person making more money or less, or an entire nation of consumers making more money or making less money. Let's get into the four types of sort of outcomes, four types of goods that are classified under income elasticity of demand. So maybe it's a good time to think about our equation here for calculating income elasticity of demand. Looks quite similar to our equation for PED, in that we have percentage change of quantity demanded here, and then in response, or what causes a change in that, rather, is a change of income. So we put the force on the bottom. The force is the change in income, and we are trying to measure how does a change in income have an impact on what people buy. So there's four possible outcomes with that. The first outcome is a luxury good. Okay, when we have a luxury good, we're going to have a YED value that is very large. It's certainly going to be greater than 1. So what that means is a small change in income will have a very large change in quantity demanded. So things like holidays, right, going on vacation, maybe a big fancy house or something like that, those are all luxury goods. Now, be careful there. Distinguish the word luxury from sort of like a status symbol, right? When we use the word luxury good, we're really meaning it in the context of YED and maybe differently than how you'd use it in everyday conversation, okay? Luxury goods are the first thing. They have a YED value that's very big and certainly bigger than 1. A step down from that, something that's a little less responsive to a change in income, is a normal good. And for a normal good, that value is going to be about 1. Could be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but basically what that means is a number of 1 means there's a pretty proportional relationship between a change in income and what we buy. I would say that probably most things in life are normal goods, as in if our income goes up, so does our consumption of that thing. So you might think about sort of going out to dinner, going out to eat. That's a normal good. If people have more money, they'll probably do that kind of thing more. So the other type of thing is to consider, the third type is a necessity good. Now necessity goods are going to have a YED value here of very close to 0. As in, even if we have an increase in income, we're not going to buy more of that thing. So you might think of like a prescription medication is a necessity good. People are going to, if you need that to live, it doesn't matter what your level of income is, you're still going to consume that thing. Okay, so that's a YED value of very close to 0. Okay, and the fourth one, and perhaps most importantly, and maybe a little bit counterintuitive to how we learned about a determinant of demand, is the idea of an inferior good. Okay, so be careful. The word inferior is not some sort of commentary on the quality of the thing that we're talking about. In the context of YED, an inferior good just simply means that as our income goes up, we buy less of that thing. So for me, that thing has been ramen noodles. When I was in college, it's almost a rite of passage to consume instant noodles if you're in college. Now that I'm out of college and my income has gone up, thankfully, since I was in college, I can't remember the last time I bought a package of instant noodles. So some things, when our income goes up, we actually buy less of it. And the opposite reasoning is true. If our income goes down, we will buy more, right? So those are the four possible outcomes here, and we can show whatever that is with a supply and demand graph, okay? To show the impact on a luxury good, there would be a pretty substantial change in demand, right? To show the impact on a normal good, you just show a pretty standard shift of demand. You don't really need a diagram to show no change whatsoever, right? That's not how economic diagrams work, so you probably wouldn't need to use a diagram to show the impact of a necessity good because there really isn't one. And then you can also show a decrease in demand if there's been an increase in income for something. So I'm going to talk you through two different examples here. We have a normal good here and an inferior good there. So with a normal good, as our income goes up, our consumption of that thing will be pretty proportional to the change in income. So the normal good here is a new car. Those are pretty strongly correlated with economic growth. As economic growth goes up and people have more money, they'll go buy themselves a new car, right? So prior to this whole COVID-19 mess, the sale of new cars was doing quite well. And that was a market where car manufacturers were enjoying some pretty strong demand. And since about 2009, all the way to 2019, we went 10 years without really a recession. So we had year upon year of some good economic growth, some higher wages, and all that good stuff. That led to an increase in income. And like I said, most things in life are probably going to be a normal good, as in when we have more money, we'll buy more of them. So as a result, in sort of that 10 years of a nice rate of economic growth, there was an increase in demand for new cars. We had a change in the quantity equilibrium, and probably more importantly in the price, right? In response to the increase in demand, car manufacturers made more cars because they were incentivized to. They could sell those cars at a higher price. They knew they could get away with selling those cars at a higher price because there was the income and the demand there to support that. Okay? So in this case, a new car is a normal good. People will buy more of it if income goes up. Okay? But the party can't last forever. As we all know, we're in a recession now, and thanks to COVID-19, some interesting things have been happening in the markets for some inferior goods. So I've put spices down here because people are eating out at restaurants a lot less. Some people are still getting takeout, but a lot of restaurants have just flat out closed or gone out of business or whatever. So a lot of people are cooking more at home. So spices are something that are an inferior good. Now that all of our incomes I think as a society, our income has gone down, people are doing more cooking at home and they need to buy more spices to do that. So in this example, this is probably March 2020 and onwards, our incomes have gone down, right? And in response to that, people are eating out at restaurants less and they are cooking more at home. So in this case, when there's been a decrease in income, we're actually going to have an increase of demand here. That's a little bit different than how we learned it when we learned that income was a determinant of demand. But in this case, our incomes have gone down and our consumption of sort of groceries that we can cook at home has increased. And we should know how to do that by now. Increase in the quantity equilibrium as a result of an increase in price. So usually a recession is bad news, but it's not bad news for everyone because those producers that sell inferior goods, they will actually see an increase in sales and an increase in revenue, right? So let's say during a recession, as incomes go down, the demand for new cars will probably go down. And as the opposite is also true here. Let's say there's a really strong stretch of economic growth and really low unemployment and people want to go enjoy a nice dinner out, the demand for spices will probably go down. Okay? So that's kind of what YED is. It measures how does a change in income affect what we buy. And now you might ask yourself, well, why do we care about that, right? It's really important to individual businesses to keep track of what a nation's economic growth rate looks like. Because one of our core questions in economics is what to produce, right? And YED is one of those tools that can help producers know what to make. During times of recession, they probably want to make more instant noodles and more spices and inferior goods like that, because they know that people don't have the money to buy them. So it's not that demand has decreased in every single market during a recession. Some things actually see an increase in demand when income goes down. Producers should make more of those things. And the opposite is also true. With normal goods or luxury goods, those are the things that businesses should try to produce more of when there's strong economic growth to support that. So things like sales of trips and going on vacations and things, you'll see those businesses be pretty active and make as many of those things as they can during strong times of economic growth, right? So why do we care about YED? Why is it important? It helps us answer that question of what to produce. Okay? Thanks, guys.